Thank Mark Saffer and Laella Saffer for presenting us with the stress and the stressful time. Oops. It's been an unusually stressful time for us in what's going on in Israel and here on campus and in the streets and all the protests. So welcome Mark Saffer and Laella Saffer to help us de-stress.
So let me start with a story. Once there was a professor who stood in front of his class of students holding a glass of water. And he asked the students, "How much do you think this glass of water weighs? How heavy is it?" Students' answers ranged from about 20 grams to 500 grams. But he stopped them and he said, "It actually doesn't matter how much this glass of water weighs, how heavy it is. What matters is how long you're holding that glass of water for. If you hold that glass for 1 minute, that's easy. It feels pretty light. It's okay to hold. If you hold it for 10 minutes, your arm starts hurting from holding. If you hold that glass for the entire day, you're going to have to call an ambulance at the end of that day. It's so heavy." So it doesn't matter the absolute weight. It matters how long you're holding it for. So too with stress. If we hold on to our stress for too long, that becomes very heavy. Stress that we've been holding since October, very heavy by now. And for a lot of us, we've been holding stress even longer than that. So we hope that by the end of today and during today's learning and practicing that we're going to be doing, this gives you the opportunity to put that glass of water down, to relieve some of that burden, that stress is affecting on all of us. So thank you to Rabbi Korobkin and Elaine for suggesting we do this workshop in the first place.
I think that the suggestion for the workshop came from the Rivton because she was tired of her husband getting so many requests for help how to cope with stress. So he said, "Well, why don't you put everybody together and we can get it over with in an hour." I think that's what happened.
And thank you again to Elaine and Mark for putting all of it together in the first place. So I'll give you a quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. We're talking about stress, what it is, how it affects our minds and our bodies. We're going to give over the main strategies of how to deal with stress, and we'll include practice. And at the end, we're going to go through some prevention strategies of stress that we can hope to achieve in the first place. We've asked you to take notes, pen and paper. If you haven't taken, it's here on this chair. There's research indicating that if you do take notes, you're much more able to then implement it and understand what we're learning in the first place. And if you can't see, feel free to rearrange your chairs or come up closer if you can't hear me. And we're going to get started.
So,
we're going to leave this one.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry, my questions, yes. So, can you give us an idea of what stressors you're experiencing? Show if anyone can raise their hands, volunteer. What things are stressing you out? Yes.
Safety, especially after the horrible news last night that the state school was shot at.
Yes, so we're being really in the crisis mode as we're giving this presentation.
in case people
Yes.
I see people didn't hear.
No, I need
Okay. So,
Doesn't matter. Yes.
Do we have a mic, by the way?
do we have a mic? Yeah, it means coming more closer forward.
Yeah.
I think there's a chronic worry about the hostages and when are they going to get out and how many are still alive. I think that's a important stress.
Yeah.
For me, a fear of the unknown. Like, it's this bad now, what's going to happen next?
For me, it's all the demonstrations. I'm afraid if I go out and I'm confronted.
So it sounds like it's really situation related to Israel and being Jewish right now. Any other stressors that are not so, yeah?
Well, nothing like this should surprise us. A lot of rabbis saying we're living in Yamim Achronim, the end of days, and the forerunner of the Yamim Achronim is catastrophic events all over the world.
So still
Personal
Jewish
and
related
global.
stress, call it. Great. So we don't have to change everything that we planned to talk about today.
I had a cyber scam that got complicated.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Cyber
Cyber
scam.
scam.
What is that?
You got scammed.
Scam.
Yeah. Mm. Okay, so let's talk about stress and what stress really is. Okay, because if we can understand it better, then of course we can tame it better and deal with it better. Stress is what our minds and our bodies do when we get the sense that there's something dangerous outside us, or even something inside us, inside our minds. That's what stress is. I use the word sense. We sense that something is going on because it can come from any one of our 5 senses, something we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, feel, anything like that. Or some thoughts that we have inside, or feel emotionally. There's a danger. Something's going to hurt us. Something's going to hurt us physically, or something's going to hurt us mentally. So stress is what protects us from the danger. So it's a good thing. Because if you didn't feel the stress, you'd do something stupid. You know, you want to get to Yorkdale and you cross over the 401. You take a shortcut over the 401. That's what you would do if you didn't have the stress. Anybody see the documentary Free Solo on Netflix about the guy that climbed Yosemite without any climbing ropes? Okay, he's still alive. Okay.
For now.
But when scientists investigated his brain, they found that the part that registers stress wasn't there. It didn't happen. He didn't feel danger. Okay. So for you and me, that part of the brain is essential. If it's not working, it's going to be something really stupid and crazy, like hiking in Bhutan, in your 70s, some crazy thing like that. Who would do that? Who would do that? Right. So this part of the brain that collects all the information.
Louder, Mark.
Move forward.
It's still. Come closer. Come closer.
So this part of the brain that collects all the information and decides that there's a danger is a little collection of nerve cells deep in the brain that's shaped like an almond, and it's the size of an almond, and it's called the amygdala. And why is it called the amygdala? Because that's the Greek word for almond. I don't know if there are any Greek speakers here. Nobody? Good. Because the real Greek word for almond is amygdalo. But the guy who discovered it, he thought it sounded sexier to say amygdala rather than
A
amygdala.
feminine ending.
Yeah, a feminine ending. Right, right. So when the amygdala gets a message that we're in a dangerous situation, it starts going bananas. It's like a burglar alarm. The pop, pop, pop. It sends a message, 911, 911, to different parts of the brain. It's to a switchboard that sends a message down to the adrenal glands on top of the kidneys and says, well, guys, we need adrenaline. We need to, there's a danger here. So they pump out some adrenaline so we can decide to do one of two things. Whether I can fight or we can run. That's flight. That's the fight or flight mechanism. Okay. So think about it. When you are ready to fight or flight, or going to flight, you need your muscles to be all tensed up. In order for your muscles to be tensed up, to be ready for action, you need more oxygen for the muscles. How do you get more oxygen? You open your lungs and you start breathing more. And when you start breathing more, you need to bring more blood to the lungs and to the muscles. So your heart starts pumping so that it gets more oxygen to the muscles. Now this is all called the stress response, right? You're ready to fight. Adrenaline tells all these parts of the body to do these things. That chemical adrenaline doesn't last very long in your body. It's a chemical that disappears in a few minutes. So what the body does, if you have to maintain that height of awareness and stressness for a longer period of time, then the body produces cortisol. You've all heard about cortisol. That's the long-lasting stress hormone. Okay. So this whole thing, it has the same effect as adrenaline. It just lasts longer. So this whole thing is what's called the stress response. The amygdala, the adrenaline, and the cortisol. That's all you have to remember. Okay. You can't go home yet. Now you ask yourself, how did this whole thing start? How did we develop this stress response? So you look 100,000 years ago, I'm a caveman, I'm walking through the jungle, and I see two eyes peering at me. And I got to decide, is it a tiger? Was it a guy from 3 caves down and come to steal my wife? I've got to act fast. Everything depends on what I do in the next few seconds. I've got to either save my life if it's a tiger, or I got to save my wife if it's a neighbor. One of those two things. So I needed my stress response when I was a caveman out in the jungle 100,000 years ago. So you see the positive effects of dealing of stress in dealing with danger. It's a good thing. Now let's move to the 21st century. I'm crossing Clark and Bathurst over there, and the guy's driving, and while he's driving, he's looking at some sheets because he's got to give a talk on Sunday morning, right? And he doesn't see me, and he's almost on top of me. Whoa, the adrenaline shoots through me, and I jump out of the way, and the adrenaline and the stress response has saved my life. So it's a good thing again. Okay, but now I'm stuck in a traffic jam. Coming north on Bathurst, things are not moving. Somebody's smiling. Things are not moving. Feeling stressed. I'm going to miss mincha at the bite. Okay. And what happens? It's the same stress response as what that caveman felt 100,000 years ago. Exactly the same. The adrenaline starts pumping. Let me give you another example. What if the danger is that my machanista wants purple napkins at the wedding? And I think this is going to ruin the whole color scheme. It's going to ruin the whole affair. But it's the same stress response that I'm feeling when I'm getting uptight about that as the caveman. It was built, the stress response was built for life and death situations, not for traffic jams and not for napkins at a wedding. But it's the same response.
Or another example, the one that you all mentioned, is the war going on in Israel, right? We're all so emotionally invested that I don't even say we check the news, because are we ever not checking the news? That's what it feels like. We're so heavily involved. Back in October, the stress hormone that was released then was adrenaline, right? That one that mobilized us for fight or flight. Unfortunately, because of how long it's been going on, that other longer-lasting stress hormone, cortisol, had to start getting pumped, which essentially means that's keeping us in fight or flight for much longer than is actually healthy. And it's really 24 hours a day. I'm sure you've all experienced this, that you read the news just before bed and you wake up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., maybe with a good idea of what to say to those demonstrators, the university protesters. So really what's going on, that cortisol is pumping even in the middle of the night, all night long, keeping us pumped, ready for action, 24 hours a day.
So like Laella said, we're pumped up, ready for action, 24 hours a day. Now the average car, when you're driving, goes at how many revs a minute? Humphrey, 1,500 to 3,000?
Goes up to 8,500.
It goes up to 8,500. Okay. But what would happen if you kept the car at 15,000 revs?
You blow the motor. If the car
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Burnt out, destroyed. So, if you keep your body revved up like that for a long period of time, going at 15,000 revs a minute, then you're also going to burn out your body. Okay. You guys thought you were here this morning because your mind is feeling stressed. Yeah, it's also your body. You know, you're destroying your bodies, and you're going to die too early from the stress. Heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. That's on top of the anxiety and the panic and the depression and the irritability.
I didn't mean to stop you mid-sentence, but I'm wondering how it impacts a pregnancy.
We're going to be asking questions later, okay? No problem. Depression, irritability. Irritability is a bad one. That can be fatal. Because if you're too irritable, your spouse can kill you.
So, what to do with this situation? Well, amazingly, we have the cure in our bodies as well, and we just don't know it. So as Mark said, the stress system is run by a pretty complicated set of nerves all over our bodies, right? The good news, Hashem has given us an equally complicated set of nerves all over our bodies that does the opposite. We'll call that the relaxation system. So all we have to do is reduce our stress system and activate our relaxation system. Simple.
So that's very simple. So let's do a little experiment, okay? You know how to find your pulse? Here between, just below your thumb and use 2 fingers. Has everybody got it? Or if you can't find it in your neck here. If you can't find it on your wrist. Feel it? Okay. Get to know it. Feel the rate. Feel how fast it's going or how slow it's not going. Okay. Now, while you're doing that, while you're feeling your pulse, take a very short, sharp, fast breath in and hold it. Feel your pulse. Feel your pulse. Feel what it's doing. Now a long, slow breath out. And keep on feeling your pulse. And see what happens to the rate. Do it again. Short, sharp, big breath in. And now out. Anybody notice anything? I think the pulse stopped. Stopped? Anybody else notice?
Sped up and slowed down.
It sped up and it slowed down. Yeah, sure. That's exactly what happens. When we breathe in, then our pulse speeds up because what we're doing, we're engaging that danger adrenaline system. When we breathe out, then we engage the relaxation system. Okay? Let's do it again a 3rd time so you really get to know it. Okay? Find your pulse. And take a deep, short breath in. And long, slow breath out. So now what we want to do, as Laella said, we want to engage more of the relaxation system and less of the stress, adrenaline system, the danger system. That's what we do. So this time, you don't have to feel your pulse, but take a short, sharp breath out, in, and then a long breath out. Oh, wait a bit, hang on a second. You know where the word Om comes from? Okay. I mean, it does come from Eastern religions. It's true. But if you look at how it's described in Eastern religions, I've got some descriptions here. It's the universe beyond the sun. Okay? It's something that's mysterious and inexhaustible. It's almost the essence of breath, life, everything that exists. Isn't that interesting? That's like the Rambam and Chassidut all together in that word Om. Just in that syllable. But if you're uncomfortable with it, if you think that it's derived from Avodah Zarah, then there's another thing you could do. You can use the Jewish version, which is Shalom. So let's do that loud, okay? Do that out, everybody. And let's do that for a minute. Short breath in and Shalom. Let's do it for a minute. Shalom. 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 Anybody venture about how you feel after that minute? Relax.
Relax.
You do? Really? Really? You're not just saying that because I'm expecting you to say that. You feel relaxed? Isn't that beautiful? Okay.
A silly question.
Yeah.
So if you're breathing, you can't talk and breathe at the same time. So do you say the shalom first and then you take the deep breath?
No. No.
Okay, but hang on. Before, oh yeah, sorry.
This breathing technique only related to the chest area, or also include the abdominal part of your body?
We'll come to that
That's a
later.
good question.
Good question. We'll talk about that later. And meditation techniques.
But let's just pause for a second. I think there's a question to ask here first, before all this breathing stuff. How do we actually know when we're feeling stressed? What part of us kind of says, hey, Laella, I'm feeling stressed right now?
Stomach.
Stomach,
Heart
heart beating fast. Stomach, what? The
Fluttery, like
fluttery
tensing.
stomach. Yeah.
Harder to fall asleep.
Harder to fall asleep.
Tension in your shoulders.
Tension in your shoulders. Great, yeah.
Behavior towards that.
The thing is, your stomach can't really talk, right? And your heart can't really talk, and your shoulders, those don't really talk either. So what's actually telling us that we're stressed, there's a part of our brain that tells us, hey, my stomach's in a knot, my stomach is fluttery, I can see that. I can see that my shoulders are scrunched up, or I can see that my heart is beating fast, or I can see that I'm having worried thoughts about Jewish people in Canada. This part of our brain, we'll call that the mindfulness center. That is the part of our brain that is seeing and describing what is going on in our minds and in our bodies. So it's not actually getting involved with those things. It's separate. It's kind of like, anybody here watch sports? Sports, maybe hockey or basketball. And what that mindfulness center is actually like the person who's behind the video camera, who's videoing what's going on the court and in the arena. That person is still a part of the arena or a part of the people, because it's a person usually, but he's separate, right? He's not involved, he's just noticing, panning over the arena and the crowd, right? So that is like our mindfulness center, noticing without being involved. How do we actually know that that part of our brain is there? If someone, chas v'chalila, has a stroke and that part of their brain is affected, they actually can't describe what's going on in their minds or in their bodies. It's like throwing out the person who's videoing. The game is still going on, right? But the person who's videoing is not there. So there's nothing that's describing or noticing. Most of us, we don't even know, we're not completely unaware that the video camera is operating. We're so heavily involved in the game, right? Maybe we're cheering on our favorite team, or we're shouting at the ref, or we're fighting with the other fans in the stands. But we're never once stopping and asking ourselves, what's going on in this game? What's going on inside of me?
So Laella gave you the metaphor of the video camera. I'm going to give you another metaphor, just as important. Fabulous metaphor, an analogy. It's going to help you understand what's going on. Imagine that you're at the zoo. You walk past the tiger's cage, and the tiger sees you, and he starts roaring. Right? You get a fright. It's roaring like crazy, and you get a fright. Then you see that he can't hurt you as much as he roars. And you look at the tiger, and you just stare at him, and you say nothing. What's the tiger going to do? What do you think the tiger's going to do if you're just looking at him? What? Back off. No. He realizes that he's stuck. He can't do anything. So he lies down. Does his tiger thing. He starts cleaning himself. Okay. So here comes the brilliant idea. Yeah, here comes the brilliant idea. The cage that the tiger's in is your amygdala inside your brain. The tiger is all the nerves that are flashing inside your amygdala. And where does the tiger come from? The tiger comes from all the messages that you're getting that tells you, that there's danger. The messages from all your senses and from your unconscious, from things you don't even know about. Those messages are coming. That's the tiger. And you, standing outside of the cage, are the mindfulness center. And you're watching the tiger. You're watching what's going on. You're the guy watching through the video camera. And this is the first step in the strategies of how to deal with stress. Of turning on the video camera and noticing just noticing what's going on inside the cage. So if you can get yourself to live in the mindfulness center most of the time, and watch what's going on inside your amygdala, inside the tiger's cage, then your amygdala, just like the tiger, will stop firing. It'll calm down. The amygdala will be more relaxed. So let's define mindfulness. Mindfulness is defined as noticing what's going on everywhere. Outside of you, inside your body, and inside your mind. That's what you're observing. Noticing, but without judging. Without saying, that's a scary tiger. No, it's just a tiger. That's a scary thought. No, it's just a thought. That's all. So let's do an exercise in mindfulness now. Close your eyes. You need a pen, Ari?
No.
Huh? Okay. Close your eyes and focus, notice on what's going on around you. Okay? Not in your mind, not in your body, but in your environment. Hear any noises. Okay, let's do that for half a minute. Okay. Anybody care to share what they noticed?
Until you made me do that, I didn't realize how loud the air system
Exactly.
was. Like it was silent until you got us to focus.
Right. You noticed it better. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Anybody else?
I heard this thinking sound.
Yeah. So, anybody notice the people next to them breathing?
Clicks of pens.
That too, the pens. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. So let's leave the environment and let's do the same kind of thing. But this time, be aware, notice your body. Where it is, what it feels like, the feeling of your tochus on the seat, whatever. Okay? Let's do that for half a minute. Remember, don't judge, just notice. Okay, again, anybody like to share what you were aware of?
Heaviness in the limbs.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Did you know that it was there before?
No.
Exactly. Brilliant. Right. Anybody else? Wait, what? Anybody else? Yeah.
Tense muscles that your
Tense muscles. In which particular area?
shoulders.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And you could focus on them and feel them. Okay. So we did that experiment with the environment, and we did the experiment with our bodies, where our bodies are. Now let's leave the environment behind and leave your body behind and focus on what's going on in your mind. Your thoughts, your feelings. Okay. Let's try that for a minute. Don't judge the thoughts or feelings. Just accept them. Observe them. Notice them. How was that? Could you do it? You could do it. Okay. So what we did here was what's called non-directed or non-focused mindfulness, this last part. It's just being aware of what's happening in our mind. It's where our mind goes, where we're not thinking about a particular thing, not thinking not thinking about a particular thing. That's non-focused, non-directed mindfulness.
So now let's do some directed mindfulness.
May I ask a question? Can you explain the difference between the mind and the brain?
We use those two terms in the same way.
That they're not the same. Each one play different role.
Sorry?
They play different roles.
They play,
Different roles.
let's talk about that in the question. Save it. Okay? Save it.
So let's try some directed or focused mindfulness. So again, I invite you to sit up straight in your chair. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. I'll ring this at the beginning and at the end to signal that we're done. Slowly begin to become aware of your breath. Wherever it's moving in your body. You might feel the air moving in and out by your nostrils. You might feel it in your throat or in your stomach. Don't try to change that. Just breathe naturally and normally. Don't deepen your breath in any way. Just gently breathe in and out. In and out. You may start to notice any tension that you're holding in your body. From the tips of your toes to the top of your head, notice. Are you scrunching up your toes? Let them be more relaxed. Are your shoulders hunched up? Lower them. Is your face scrunched? Lower your jaw, open your mouth. And notice what that feels like. You may start to notice that you're having some thoughts. Don't judge that. Notice the thoughts. And you can say to yourself, no, I'm bringing my awareness back to my breath now. You may do that over and over again as the thoughts keep trying to creep in. You say, I see you, thought. I'm not getting involved with you right now. I'm bringing my awareness back to my breath. As it flows in and out. Again, just breathing naturally and normally. In and out. Now do this for the next 2 minutes while I keep quiet. Just breathe on your own.
Mazal tov. You have now learned how to meditate. Exactly.
Sorry, what did you say?
You have now learned how to meditate. So, now we arrived at the crux of our talk, on the strategies of how to deal with stress. We're not yet talking about how to prevent stress. We'll talk about that later in a few minutes. But these are the strategies in 3 easy steps. Step number 1, you step outside of yourself into your mindfulness center and turn on the video camera. You watch without any judgment what's going on, especially in your amygdala, in the tiger's cage, and also in your body. That's step number 1. Step number 2, you do a breathing exercise for as long as it takes to calm your system down. When you get good at it, you can do it with practice. You can do it in a few seconds. You can even do it in the middle of a conversation with somebody without them even noticing that you're doing it.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when you're not so good at it, before you become an expert, if the conversation is stressing you, you can say, excuse me, I need to go to the washroom. And you go and you sit down and you do the exercise until you feel less stressed, and then you go back to the conversation. And when you're calmer, once you're calmer, you accept what's going on in the cage, inside your amygdala, without judging it. This is really important. Remember, all those thoughts and those feelings that you see through the video camera, you didn't ask for them. You didn't say, now I'm going to feel stressed. Now I'm going to think about this. Now I'm going to feel that. No. You didn't intentionally create them. Now I'm going to put my stomach in a knot. No, that all happened outside of your control. So why should you say, I'm a crazy person? I'm a bad person? I'm not. I'm just a person who, my brain created those feelings, those thoughts. I mustn't judge myself. Why should I judge myself? So step number 1 was turning on the video camera, and noticing. And then step number 2 is calming myself and accepting without judging at this stage. Without judging at this stage. Now, step number 3, after I've calmed myself down, I'm going to be making the best choice. I'm going to say to myself, what am I going to choose to think? What am I going to choose to say? And what I'm going to choose to do? Those are my choices. And you do that by having some principles, having a philosophy of life that you've learned, that you remind yourself of often, and you live by that philosophy. If you look at the Indigo bookstore or Barnes & Noble's in Athens 2,000 years ago, there wasn't a self-help section and a how to meditate section and a philosophy section. There was only one section. There was a philosophy section. And you chose your philosophy and you lived by it consistently. That's all you did. That philosophy, you made all your decisions according to that philosophy. So I'll give you an example. Say you decide that the Serenity Prayer is a great philosophy to live by. Okay? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom, the seichel, to know the difference. Okay. If I've decided that's my philosophy, then I have to live by it. I have to use it every day. I must be consistent with it, and I must apply it, of course, to every stressful situation that I'm in. I must apply that philosophy. After a few years, after using that philosophy all the time, if I find, hey, it's not really working for me, then I can find another one. That's fine. But work on one at a time and get to know it and live. One of the best ways, of course, of coming up with the best choice is to write things down. Because that way, you're really working your mind. And you can list pros and cons if it's a decision that you're making. Or you can go through the 3 steps that we've spoken about today. And write. It's so important to write, as Laella said.
And if it's helpful to remember the Viktor Frankl quote from Auschwitz, right? Between stimulus and response, so between the news and how stressed we're getting, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and our freedom.
So now you're making choices, but you're not making them from your amygdala. You're making them with a more rational part of your brain. Up here, what scientists call the prefrontal cortex, the smart part. Because before this morning, you allowed your whole mind to be hijacked by your amygdala. You allowed yourself to be dragged into the tiger's cage, to be mauled by the tiger. Now you have the power and the control to stand outside of the cage, watch what's going on inside the cage, inside your amygdala, looking through the video camera, but from a distance.
So those are your strategies. Now we're going to be talking about prevention. Of course, with the caveat that it's hard to prevent stress in the first place, as we've all seen. But these, we hope, are going to be some strategies for prevention and also buffers that if you can put in place ahead of time, you're going to be much more able to deal with the stress as it inevitably comes. So the first strategy of prevention is boundaries. Boundaries on things and boundaries on people. So what do I mean by things? Things like the news. It's so hard to disconnect from media, social media, what's going on in the news. The question to ask yourself is it good for me to be watching and engaging all day long? Is it good for Israel, to take that example? Doesn't make a difference, right? So boundary on the news could be how much you're engaging within a day, right? They say only 1 hour of news per day. Another boundary or limit is the time of day that you're engaging with the news. For me, I know when my kids come home, the news, my phone is gone, right? I'm not looking at the news. For you, it's definitely, and me, just before bed. At least an hour before bed, not to look at the news. And maybe when grandkids come home or come over, or any kind of person like that. Another boundary for news watching is the medium, the type of news that you're engaging in. There's research showing that watching the propaganda video is different than reading about the propaganda video. It does affect your stress levels differently.
And television? I can say with pride, very comfortably, that I haven't watched television news for years, and especially since October the 7th. I have not watched a single TV news broadcast. And we do have cable TV. Okay. But I decide with that cable TV what I'm going to watch. I'm not going to let Rogers decide for me, or the manufacturer of Pampers diapers to decide what I'm going to watch on TV. And talking heads, all the analysts that sit around telling you what's going to happen. I'm very careful about who I read and what I read. Sometimes I feel like I'm back in the days of the first temple, or the first temple, where every second person I hear or see is a prophet. They know what's going to happen. Come on. I even get the Toronto Star every day because I want to know what the other side is feeling and saying. There's some good articles, but I skim through the rest of it without paying much attention. I decide.
So that's the boundary on things. Now, second boundary is on people, right? So now that I've gotten really good at noticing what it is and who it is that's making me stress, I can now choose. Hey, this group of friends that I get together with is always talking about Israel, and it's actually starting to affect me much more negatively than the positives of talking about it. So I can put a limit on that as well. Maybe within the conversation, again, I need to step out to the washroom, take some breaths, return when I feel calmer. Or maybe an even bigger limit is not seeing that group of friends at all. Aware of those people that are just stressing us out, right? So that was boundaries. The next prevention, I'll give you the acronym to remember it by, which is really, again, this buffers for stress. The acronym is SEEDS, SEEDS. So the first S for sleep. Aim for 7.5 to 8 hours a night. The next E for exercise. A minimum of 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week. Next E, education. Things like the brain gym, Sudoku, bridge. Your new mindfulness practice actually falls under this E as well, right? The goal is for you to be practicing daily if you can, because what happens is neuroplasticity. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that term, but what it means is that your brain is actually going to start to change. Your amygdala starts talking to your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex, that's the mindfulness center, starts talking to your amygdala and learning to calm it down, teaching it to calm down. So that's the E. It's like a muscle, right? The more you build up the muscle at the gym, the stronger it becomes. Same with mindfulness. D is for diet or nutrition. So the Mediterranean and the low glycemic index diet as a buffer for stress. And the last S is for socializing and spirituality, which could include volunteering, coming to a shul if that's your spiritual outlet. They also, and I'll just add one more thing, is if any of these can be done in nature, like the socializing or the exercising, nature is scientifically proven to reduce your stress levels as well.
So Laella mentioned volunteering. George Bernard Shaw said, minding your own business is the shortest way to make yourself sick. Right? So volunteering, minding other people's business, will keep you healthy. By the way, if you look at these seeds, the SEEDS that Laura went through, science has shown us that your biological age, if you look after them, will be lower than your chronological age. You might be 70 years old, but your biological age could be 65. If you're going to get Alzheimer's, you are going to get Alzheimer's. You'll get it later and slower than if you don't look after your seeds. And we know that for a fact. I'll explain that later if we have time. So what we're going to do now, is hand out these summary sheets. Now don't be upset that everything here is what you've written down, because in writing it down, you have actually used your brain and processed it that you wouldn't have done if you hadn't written. We just handed out these things. Everybody got it? Everybody got it?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so let's just go through them. You can add this to your to what you've written down, and also stick it on your fridge.
If anyone wants a digital copy, we have your emails. We can email it to you as well.
But stick it on your fridge so that you see it. And if it's on your phone, you're not going to look at it. But if it's stuck on your fridge, you're going to look at it and live by it. Okay, so these are the strategies we hope that you take away with you this morning. First of all, prevention. And remember, prevention is two things. First of all, boundaries. Put up boundaries. Media and people. Boundaries with people. People who are a vexation unto the spirit. As the Desiderata said when we were hippies. Remember that? Some people are saying no. You ask yourself, is it good for me? Is it good for Israel? And if it's not, hey, why am I there? Or is it good for whatever? The seeds: sleep, exercise, education, diet, and socializing and spirituality. And secondly, remember Viktor Frankl. You're free to choose your attitude to what's going on, to whatever is happening to you. How's that? She's been great. Until the end. Isn't that beautiful? Why, how well trained Laella has been. And how do you get to the point where you can choose your attitude? Well, that's through mindfulness. So that you can make the best choices in your mind and not be controlled by your amygdala, your danger burglar, which is faulty and is giving you false alarms all day and all night. And the 3 steps in mindfulness. Number 1, switch on the video camera and notice and describe what's going on with curiosity. Oh, that's an interesting thought, an interesting feeling I have. And without judgment. And then number 2 is to calm yourself down using the breathing technique that you've learned here today and that you practice as a ritual every single day of your life. I've been doing it for 50 years, half an hour a day, every day. And make the best choice. You think I'll come by this naturally, this laid back? No. It's hard work. Make the best choice of what you're going to think or say or do, using a philosophy that suits you, that you've studied, and you've learned, and you live by consistently. And I added not foolishly. Okay? It's important too. The Dalai Lama, when he was in an interview in Vancouver, and they asked him about how he felt about the Chinese and Tibet and his homeland. And he said, there is compassion and there is stupid compassion. Okay. So we have to be careful. We shouldn't use our philosophy that we live by if it's going to be foolish. And that's it. We hope that you take this, stick it on your fridge, live with it, and when I meet you in the corridors, hi. Time for questions? Alan?
Not a comment. The Dalai Lama, he got it from us because we have chesed and chesed shotim shim.
Yeah, for sure. Very.
And the comment that got it from us, if we are such a wise religion, why is this kind of this whole thing more something we see in Buddhism? We don't really see it in Judaism. Judaism kind of seems like a high stress religion. Like it does feel that we have to be attentive and we have to be on sort of on edge. And why is that wisdom not?
Do you know where Sukkah de Zimra comes from? No? Okay. So the Hasidim, 2,000 years ago, they used to spend an hour before davening is just the Amidah, the Shema and Amidah. They used to spend an hour before davening in meditation. That's what's left of it is Psukei de Zimra. And after davening, they used to spend an hour in meditation. I don't know when they have it, when they had time for their jobs, but there's a tradition of meditation in Judaism that goes back thousands of years. There really is. It's got lost. Aryeh Kaplan brought it back. Jewish man, he was very big in bringing it back. The Lubavitcher Rebbe in the late 60s, early 70s, when everybody was running, especially Jews, to transcendental meditation, he said, come on, we need Jewish meditation. Okay? And so, yes, there is a meditation tradition in Judaism, a very strong one. We lost it. But when Hasidus talks about going out in the woods, Baal Shem Tov or Reb Nachman talks about going out in the woods alone and talking to God. He had a very strong meditation tradition. Yeah. Esther.
I've had some patients who have told me that their relationship, let's say with their daughter, kind of ended because the daughter saw a therapist who put a boundary on the relationship between my patient and their daughter. Usually there was some sort of toxicity there. But now the mother is aghast at the thought, and I was wondering whether therapists have to be very, very careful to make a boundary on very significant relationships and rather saying this is your opportunity to have that space where you can learn to deal with your mother, because that's a real significant relationship to exclude family. But I don't find that the therapist, or at least from the lens, from the patient's point of view, no, I've been excluded, I'm out, because I guess I was bothering her, you know what I mean? So how does this get addressed from the therapist's lens, that they wouldn't exclude very significant relationships that this patient's trying to work through?
Do we know what the mother was doing to the daughter? Do you know?
Okay, usually, I don't know the full breadth of that.
Exactly.
Because, a parent's not going to say, I nag her to death.
Yeah.
They're not likely to say that.
Yeah. But
It
maybe
probably
she
wasn't
wasn't.
just that.
What?
It probably wasn't just that, I would hope.
No.
At least
But maybe she
as
was
a
nagging her
therapist,
to
I would never put a boundary on a daughter-mother relationship if she was nagging her too much. So my initial thought is that it was probably a bit deeper than that, something that was against her own values, I would say, is really maybe a time to put a boundary on. If, my initial thing is a sexual orientation issue where the mother is not willing to accept her daughter, let's say, and then might that be a place for a boundary? That would be reasonable.
So until we know the whole story,
Right.
we shouldn't judge.
Right.
Right.
Not that I want to be judgmental,
No.
but some people have little capacity to manage stress.
Yes.
So then you end up cutting significant relationships because I can't deal with her, I can't deal with her nag, she doesn't like what I wear, she doesn't like my earrings, she doesn't like what I eat for breakfast. So, but I hear there might be some depth there, but there may be just an inadequate ability to cope with stress and they end
That's
up
true.
taxing
That's true.
the relationship.
That's true.
It's just
So you suggest the daughter comes here.
Right?
You suggest the daughter comes here.
Yes,
Or the mother.
yes. Or one
Or
that
the
would
mother,
be, but
because
tired.
Let's talk about the serenity prayer, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Maybe the mother's just gotta accept. Okay?
That's
And
a big
work
one.
on herself.
Yeah.
My practice is also full of people like that, where the one stops talking to the other.
Right.
And the other one has every right to call the therapist, leave a message to say how distressed they are. The therapist cannot divulge any confidentialities, of course. But then the therapist will take that back to her patient, the client, the daughter in this case, deal with that, which may give more and more flexibility to the situations.
There you go.
Very good, Dr.
There you
Saffer.
go. There you go. Yeah, I think the three of us practice a Rodef Shalom kind of therapy. We try to make peace.
No, I just feel it's something that Professor was talking about. Maybe a suggestion for them to meet with a family therapist so that both sides are heard.
For sure.
And because I do understand that sometimes the therapist has to protect the person who's come in
Mm-hmm.
and give the suggestions to that person that they feel protected, and therefore that person or the daughter may come out and say, well, I have to protect myself,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what my therapist has advised me, and therefore I cannot,
Mm-hmm.
continue
Yeah,
this
sure.
relationship.
Sure.
So I do often feel that both sides need to be heard with a professional in the room.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Mediation helps.
Mediation.
Yes.
Rabbi Lusher had a very interesting article in Chacham Lev about psychotherapy and tradition, and he made an interesting point that sometimes the rabbis are opposed to psychotherapists because some of them are not religious, and they may have a point of view that's antithetical to religion, like you don't like to keep Shabbos or not eat kosher, so don't, or whatever. So there's a boundary, I think, where you need a therapist to have some respect, at least for Jewish values.
Of course.
Because sometimes people do things that are wrong, and the therapist will say, it's okay,
Right.
you like it, and you need to find a balance.
Right. There are many woke therapists these days
Yeah,
who are ruining people's lives.
exactly.
Sure. Very.
So when you refer to the serenity prayer,
Mm.
I have a problem with like that understanding. Like okay, if it bothers me that it rains, I have to say, but it's raining, there's nothing I can do about it. But what about those situations where you're going, I think if I do something, it will help, but
That's why the last part, the wisdom to know the difference. What I can control and what I can't control.
That's to me very. Can I just give you just a practical example?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a school that moved in across the road from our house where we had nice silence. They're out there and they're very disrespectful of time. And sometimes I get on the phone and I'll say something, but then they're there and there's almost nothing I can do. But then there is and there isn't, and that confuses me because I have that stress of not just being able to say it's the rain, there's nothing I can do about it. I kind of feel maybe I can, and that's why that's a big stress.
Right. Well, here you go. That's the wisdom. Do I have a chance with engaging municipal authorities, engaging the school board, complaining to the right people, or is it not going to help? And if it's not going to help,
Oh, sorry. No, don't cut it.
and if it's not going to help, then what I do have control over is two things. First of all, my feelings about the noise. Okay? Because remember, your response to the noise is in your amygdala. That's where it is. Your amygdala is saying, there's disturbance here, there's disturbance here. You can look at your amygdala and calm it down, in spite of there being a disturbance.
You can.
You can. That's the whole idea. Okay? You're not going to, 1090, that's a good point. 10% of your problem is the noise. 90% of your problem is your response to the noise. Your amygdala's response to the noise. And you can do something about that 90% using the techniques we've spoken about here today. Right?
Thank you.
And if all else fails, you can move.
That's what I was gonna say. That consider does taking action have to mean I'm stressed about figuring out what action to take, or can I still do something without the stress accompanying?
Remember also that there's no delete button on the amygdala, on the feelings, on the tiger. The tiger exists in the cage. The feelings are still there. As much as we look at them from the outside, through the video camera, they're still there. So I have an angry feeling, but it's not directing me. It's lying down in the cage. It's there. I haven't given it much significance. It's there. The angry feeling is there. Okay, so. But it's not directing me. I'm not in the cage with the tiger, being mauled by the tiger, involved in the feeling. I'm looking at it from the outside and saying, oh, I have an angry feeling. Or I have a jealous feeling. Or I have a whatever feeling. I have a feeling inside my amygdala. So what? I don't give it significance. Stan?
So at that point,
Yeah.
you're looking at the video camera, and people keep playing those reruns in their mind. It's
Yeah.
time to stop with the reruns,
Right.
and that's how you stop looking at them.
Sometimes one of the choices you can make is I'm going to choose to distract myself now. Okay? Because all I'm doing is thinking about Israel. I'm going to watch some comedy. Okay? Dry bar comedy. Anybody watch dry bar comedy? It's clean. It's clean. It's funny as hell. It comes from a club in Utah. So if you're looking for comedy that's clean without adverts, just Google dry bar comedy.
Also the
Dry
baby,
bar.
this baby.
Dry bar. B-A-R. A dry bar. A bar without liquor. Yeah. 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 Robert.
Can you comment also, you've been mentioning that the tiger, and always in the context of negative emotions or negative stresses.
No.
But also, could you comment about how to use that same technique you're talking about with positive emotions, or things that are happening that are good, and how to use that in a positive way to help you another, with stress in other situations?
Yeah, sure. Robert raises the point of positive emotions that you notice in your amygdala. And what do we do with that? Well, hey, we go with it. But, if I'm in love, I'll go with it. Unless it's an unhealthy love. Okay? So, I choose which feelings I'm going to go with and which feelings I'm going to let them.
But can you use that when you're stressed in a negative way, is what I'm trying to understand. Like, can you use those positive feelings that you get and use that as a counterbalance, or say, oh, remember I had that good feeling or that good experience,
Sure.
and then bring that in and say, oh, that'll push away the negative.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it won't delete them, remember.
Right.
It might not delete them. Maybe 20 years of psychotherapy might delete it. But
just to give a little hope with that, there's new research showing actually just 30 seconds a day of mindful breathing, of mindfulness practice, can have a positive effect on reducing your stress level. Just 30 seconds.
And change your brain, as Laella said. Neuroplasticity. Yeah, which changes the way the way the nerves communicate with each other. And as Laella says, the more mindful you are, there's tracts of nerves that go between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And the more you meditate, the more you do mindfulness practice, the bigger they are. You can show that. You can actually show that in the brain. Yeah. Victor.
Cited this Victor Frankl. Whether we like it or not, we receive the stress situation on a daily basis or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The situation is how we deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very simple school of thought is remember the old-fashioned locomotive train, remember those?
Yeah, the train.
Okay. Remember what they used to, when they reached to a train station?
Mm-hmm.
What do? You start hearing for them.
Yeah.
Every train station they do that.
Yeah.
That's a very old school of thought.
Yeah.
If we do that, we're going to be
No.
very
Sure. You can add that to your techniques.
There's another
If you
point,
want-
I don't know if you mentioned it when I was out, about PTSD and growth. There's now research being done at this moment on armies and which people suffer from PTSD and which do not. Only a small percentage actually do. Even people who've been at the front line. So,
You're saying that you're talking too quietly, I'm just hearing this in the back.
oh yeah, the guy behind you, can you hear now? Shall I repeat?
Yeah,
There's,
repeat.
there's a whole lot of new research right now being done on growth and PTSD because they found that not all frontline soldiers, let's say, suffer from PTSD. So why only look at those who do suffer? Let's also look at those who do not suffer and see what's going on in their brains and how they're growing from these experiences.
What are they finding?
They're still in the process. They're finding there are definite differences.
I can just
And this will be rolled out apparently amongst the US Army soon. And hopefully other armies too.
let me just give you one other tip. A meditation app that I use is called the Insight Timer.
Insight.
Insight, INSIGHT, Timer. It's a free app and it has thousands of meditations. Remember, there's two kinds. If you're learning meditation, if you're starting off, the best thing is to do 3 months of breathing. Okay. And then you can decide maybe some other kind is better for you. Yeah, guided meditation. Okay. I think you use a lot of guided meditation for yourself.
And patience.
And patience. I don't, because I can't stand people telling me what to do. Especially my wife. So you know why she's my better half? Because she's always saying, you better do this, you better do that.
Now we start with the comedy part.
Something that works for you. Whatever works for you. Great. Okay. I see it's 11 o'clock. I mean, we're comfortable, but if anybody has to go.
You know where your children are.
What?
11 o'clock, you know where your children are.
Thank you so much. Thank you.